3 ingredients to become a better storyteller. Now, I was actually just looking online. I was watching similar videos on storytelling to see if I could pick up any nuggets to maybe add into my video, because I actually consider myself a really good communicator, and I've helped a lot of clients over the years with their communication, with their storytelling, with their conversation skills. But I just noticed something in the content that I just watched. I watched several different people who ranked very high for storytelling videos on YouTube. And let me explain what I saw, but let me explain why it's not working, okay? Because most of the people that I watched, I noticed that they don't actually coach men when it comes to social confidence, approaching, and creating attraction with women, right? And it makes sense because they haven't gone through the process of coaching so many guys. And so I want to talk about the flaws that I saw in these videos. And I just want to explain the 3 simple things that you could do, right? Because this is where I just saw every dude who made a video on this go wrong. Is I just sat down and watched several videos that were 15, 20 plus minutes, and they lay out all of these different techniques, right? And I'm not gonna lie, they're good techniques, right? Like I saw ones that are like, you need to paint the picture using the senses, talk about the touch, smell, the way you felt, the emotions, paint the picture, what color was the grass, how did it smell, what did you feel when the wind was hitting the tip of your nose, right? And that's like one point, and they would go on to give you like 10 different points in this thing, right? There's like all these different misconceptions, all these different points, and I'm watching, I'm like, yeah, this is valid, but by the time I got to the end of it, I was like, dude, no one's gonna be able to go out and implement this. They're just not. There's just so much in here, and I know what it's like to want to get better with your storytelling and your conversation skills, but then you watch the video, and when you're out in the field, you can't actually do those things because it's like trying to juggle 17 things, and you already got anxiety talking to the person. There's people watching you when you're telling the story. There's an attractive girl that you're in a conversation with. You can't even execute on this shit, right? And so I want to give you guys some simple stuff that you could just go out, and if you just do these things, yeah, I mean, look, all of those techniques and tactics are cool, but I want to give you something you could actually just go out and do. Okay, because if you're aware of it, but you can't do it, are you actually a better storyteller? No, you're gonna get more in your head from the whole thing, right? So let me just explain what I would recommend doing and what I've coached a lot of guys on over the years. Most guys that come into my program, the very first thing we do is we sit down on a one-on-one evaluation, like an onboarding, where I point out where they're going wrong with their communication, their day-to-day life, the locations they could be going to practice this stuff. And I set them up with some easy first steps for the first week. Like I customize out the first week of the program with them. We book out their coaching calls for the week. We book out in-field calls where they're gonna get out into the field, and we coach you through your approaching sessions. And one of the first things I noticed with a lot of guys is their communication's pretty bad, right? And if I were to dump this storytelling video on them and say, hey, look, dude, you need to become better with your conversations and your storytelling, you should go watch this video, there is no way in hell that they would be able to go out and implement. There's just no way in hell. They're not even approaching that much. And if they're talking to a really attractive woman, they'd be so in the head, there's no way they could go do those things. So instead, here's what I actually, to get the ball rolling, this is what I start them with, is at first, you need to record yourself on camera for 30 seconds. You pull out your phone, and you film yourself, okay? This is practical shit. If you wanna go watch 30 tactics to become a better storyteller and be overwhelmed by the end of it and not take any action, go do that. But I'm gonna show you, like, this is what I would actually do to become a better storyteller. I would pull out my phone and press video and then press record and start to record a video of myself. And I would put the phone down in a way where I can see myself from my chest or my upper abdomen and up. I would then tell a 20-second story of a story that I'm already familiar about, like either talking about your day or talking about a story that you're already very, very familiar with. So you don't need to think about it so much, right? And then you tell the story and you're just focused on your expression, your animation, and your vocal projection. This is where I see every guy go wrong, right? There's still 2 other tips that I want to point out in this video, but the very first part is just speaking louder and speaking expressive. But Kyle, what about, articulating the story and, having an open loop hook in the story and how to DHV in the story? Go watch that shit and go try to implement that when you can't even talk at a loud volume and be expressive. No. These are foundational pieces. And most guys, even the guys that come into my program, like I have guys that come into my program that are attractive, successful men. Even those guys, they could have a little bit stronger communication. They could talk a little bit louder and they could talk a little bit more expressive. Right now, by expressive, there's a lot of different elements that go to it. Your hands, your face, your eyebrows, your nose flaring, your voice like going up at times, your voice pausing, softening at times, right? These are all forms of expression. And if there was any one thing, if I could just look at a guy and he wants to be a better storyteller, he needs to have these fundamentals down pat and like have them really, really dialed. Anybody I meet that has them really dialed, they have a high level of charisma and charm. I don't look at those guys and I'm like, you know what? He's talking loud. He's very expressive, but he's not good at telling stories. Like it just almost doesn't even happen. Because most of you guys, when you think about telling a good story, you just imagine a crowd around you and you're saying the punchline and everybody's dying laughing or everybody's like they're so hooked in. A lot of that is just from being able to talk at a loud enough volume and have expression. Now, look, there is two other points to this, but I cannot emphasize this enough. Do not go watch the 20-minute advanced tactic storytelling stuff if you're not talking loud and you can't talk expressive. Most people can't do that, all right? So that is by far the foundational piece to this. The way that you get better with this is you record yourself and then you watch the recording back and just pay attention to the volume that you're talking at. Not just the way you start the video, but you'll typically start it louder and then as you go into the story, you're gonna revert back to your true baseline. The key is to develop over time with practice a higher baseline where you're talking loud. You're talking from your lower abdomen or your diaphragm. You're not talking like from your upper throat, and really you're just expressive, okay? And that takes practice. That takes reviewing your communication on camera on a daily basis, right? So that's number one. Now, once you've gotten good at being able to speak louder and being able to speak with expression, the next thing that I see men failing to do is inject laughter into their story, right? Most guys, they know they need to smile when they go up and approach a girl. If you've watched enough of my content, I talk a lot about smiling. But another big part of storytelling is injecting laughter into the story. Here's the thing, even if the story isn't funny, right? You don't only inject laughter when there's a punchline of the funny part of the story. Storytellers are good at storytelling because when you're listening to them, you feel good emotions, right? And again, there are these advanced tactics that you can create more curiosity, you can create more intrigue, you can create the viewer to get more hooked into it if you could paint the picture and you talk about all your feelings and expressions. It's true. But what I'm showing you here is more important stuff. So I don't want to discredit those things. I just think that if men did these things, the storytelling would already be at a high enough level and you would realize like, I don't need to get better at storytelling, right? Like full transparency, I don't have all of those tactics maxed out. I don't think about painting the picture. I don't think about creating open hook loops in my stories because my communication is good enough, right? And for me to spend more time trying to max that one thing out, I'll get a bigger return on my time trying to build up other pillars that are really weak too. So you want to just max out the foundation pieces first, right? And so the second one is laughter. Now, you can inject laughter at a part in the story where you're nervous, at a part in the story where you're aggressive, at a part in the story that's funny, at a part in the story that's silly, at a part in the story that's surprising. It's not just when it's funny. You could be telling the story and you say, I swear to God, I was so nervous. Literally, my heart was beating out of my chest. Like, that's not a funny part of like that in itself isn't funny. Being so nervous isn't funny, but you can tell that as if it was funny. If you got so mad, if you got so nervous, if you got so aggressive, if the person was so mean, if whatever the thing is was just, it was any type of feeling, you can just inject some laughter when you tell that part of the story, okay? Now, the reason this is powerful is because laughter creates a good emotion within the viewer. If you can just laugh and you are genuine with the laugh, the other person will typically feel good emotions. Like it's very rare that I'm talking to somebody and they tell part of the story and they laugh and I don't feel good as well. Even if I didn't find it funny, it doesn't need to be a funny part. It's just an emotion that makes your stories better, right? And these are two really big parts that I just see so many men struggling with. And when I talk to a guy and they don't do these things, the interaction just seems flat. If you could literally just do these two things, your storytelling will be good enough. Right? The final part that I see every other dude going wrong with is not understanding which details to really talk about in the story. And so they have a story, but really out of the whole story, there was only one part of it that was actually important or exciting. And they told a really long story and like 60% of the story was fluff, right? So instead of telling the full story of what happened, you want to really fast forward over the irrelevant, boring fluff to get to the punchline, not the punchline, but to get to the meat and potatoes of the story. And you can actually exaggerate or lengthen that part of the story, and that becomes the whole story. So if I wanted to talk about how my day was, right, and I start telling you about my day, or let's talk about something a little bit more eventful. Let's say I went to a music festival or something, right? And the coolest part of the event was this one moment when my favorite DJ came on stage. I don't even like music like that, but it's just funny that I don't even know where this came from. But the best part of the story was when my favorite DJ came onto the stage, and at one part in his set, he did this thing where not only did the crowd go crazy, but like fireworks went off in the background, and then like all of this like stuff like fluttered down into the crowd, and with the lights and with everything just hitting, it was like one of the most like epic experiences that I had, right? And so if you're gonna tell a story, well, where most guys go wrong is they'll tell the whole story about, so I left at this time and I took the ferry over to there. Like guys just tell the facts of the story and they just list out all the facts. And if you want to be a good storyteller, it's about realizing what parts of the story don't mean shit that nobody cares about and just telling the highlight and dragging out the highlight, right? So that's what could actually make a good story good. Good stories aren't good because it's not because of the part of the story that wasn't like good enough. It's because of all the bullshit fluff that's in the story. So you just need to think about, and you will likely tell the same stories over and over and over again. Like if you start to have enough interaction with people, stories get pretty repetitive. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing because you just now can start to think about what are the parts of the story that the people seem most engaged in, and what are the parts that don't really mean anything, right? I have this one story where, I don't even know if I've ever told this on my channel, but I had this story where I was eating sunflower seeds one day, and I was in a car because I used to be a private investigator, and so I couldn't spit the sunflower seeds out, right? And so I was just eating them because they were like flavored shells, and they literally, I ate the whole pack and it got built up in my intestines. And I literally had to go to the hospital. And long story short, I'm not gonna say the whole story, but I had a really painful experience where I couldn't get them out, and they weren't about to do surgery on my intestines, so they literally had to come out the backside of my butt, right? So it was a very painful story. It was a very painful experience. But I've told that story probably to 30 people. And I really didn't tell the whole story just because the fact that it's on YouTube. I'm not gonna. It's a very gruesome story. But when I tell the story, I really just tell the parts because I've told the story so many times that I know exactly the parts that are gonna be hilarious, the moments that are like very, very funny. And obviously, I'm gonna spend the majority of the time telling the story on that part. I'm not going to talk about. So I was working this case. It was in this town. I was in this type of car. I was feeling this way going into the day. I had this type of music playing in the background. I was really hungry. And so I was looking for a food spot nearby, and all they had was a 7-Eleven. And so I went to 7-Eleven, I browsed through the aisles. I was looking for food. Turns out they only had flavored sunflower seeds. Like, if I spend so much time on that, like there's no eventful things. Like when I just told the story right now, I jumped right into the punchline of the story, which was like, I was a private investigator and I was working this case and I was eating sunflower seeds. It turns out I didn't have anywhere to spit the seeds, right? So you just go into the funny part of the story. Not funny, but like, if it's a funny story, you tell the funny part. If it's a serious moment in a story, you focus on the serious parts, okay? So less bullshit rambling, that's when people zone out. Less bullshit rambling and figure out what is the best part of the story and just really spend 95% of your story on the best part of the story. Everything else doesn't mean anything. We only have a certain amount of time to tell the story. I might as well spend the majority of that time talking about the best part. Trim the fluff out and just hit them with really the punchline of the story. And if you could deliver that in a way that's loud, expressive, and you have some laughter when you're telling the story, I promise you it will hit. I promise you. Now, most of you guys can't do that, and most of you guys won't practice it. The way you get good at it is you actually practice it. So your assignment right now, yes, this is a classroom, this is homework, this is the assignment, is every day for the next week, you're gonna pull out your phone, you're gonna press record, and you're gonna film the video. You tell the same story every day, 7 days in a row, right? Make it a 1 minute story initially. And I want you to then go back and evaluate. Right after you tell the story, look at it on the camera and just pay attention to how loud you talk, how expressive you are, and at what points in the story do you smile, or if you don't at all, how could you have injected a little bit of a smile? You analyze it. The next day, you go back and you tell the story again. And you try to have an emphasis on doing these things better. Now, after you've done it 3-4 days in a row, I want you to then take the 1 minute video and just tell it in 30 seconds, emphasizing more on the best parts of the story. Because at this point, you would have told that same story like 4 times over 4 days, and you would have reviewed it, and you'll know which parts of the story you fucking don't like or are boring or you can't pay attention to. Right? And so by the 4th or 5th time telling the story, you can now just tell the juiciest part, you fast forward the parts in between, and then you really hit the animation and expression. And by day 7, I promise you, you'll be telling the story much better. If you're actually reviewing and making the adjustments day by day, that's how you become a good storyteller. If you go watch a 30-minute video on open hook loops and using all your senses and like these 17 bullet points, it's not practical. It's not practical. It's not practical. It's true though. Like they are tactically good points and I respect those videos, but you need to build up a really good foundation. And I want to make it super simple. It's just, hey, pull out your phone, tell the story 7 days in a row, talk louder with more expression, add some laughter. And after a couple of days, cut the story length down in half, making it concise and only using the best parts of the story. That's how you'll actually become a better storyteller. All right. Now look, storytelling in itself is just one aspect of a conversation, all right? Like most of you guys, you might be studying this, but you're not even getting into enough interactions in your week to actually even tell stories, right? And also, if you're talking to women, like being a good storyteller is great, but if you want to be better with your flirting, your escalation, your conversation structure as a whole, approaching more, landing dates, and having the social confidence in the dating life you really want, I'd love to help you with that. I made this video particularly on storytelling because I know a lot of guys are into that. But the reality is, guys, is like you want to get better with that so you could have more social confidence and so you could have more dates. And if you really want help with the whole structure, the coaching, the accountability, the support, I'd love to help you with that, okay? The link is down below. Fill out an application for an opportunity to work with me directly. Pull out your phones. Don't watch another video. You do not need to go watch another video right now. You need to go practice this stuff, right? Pull out the phone, start practicing it. That's all for this one, guys. Peace out.